My first gunfight, I know that I was more afraid of being thought less of, like, by my peers than I was of actually getting shot.
I'm ready to die for my teammates. I could say it like I'm going to choose my team when I'm deployed. It's the way it is, man. We have to be that way. It's not that I care less about my children.
I cannot be thinking about the long-lasting repercussions of me getting shot if I don't cover my sector. I just need to focus on covering my sector. We have this little voice in the back of our head that tells us we're never good enough. Like, no matter what I do, no matter what I strive to achieve, it's never going to be good enough. That desire to prove something to myself and to others is what led me to achieve good things. 9 times out of 10, if you give it your all, you are enough.
Having kids changes your perspective on life. You get a much deeper understanding of your own mortality. There's a lot you want to watch out for yourself and make sure you get home to your wife. And once you have kids, man, you have to get home.
What's going on, everyone? Sid Gordon here with the Sid Gordon podcast, powered by Core Medical Group. And today I have Matt Spalding and Colton Hill that came on. 2 very close friends, partners in the foundation, very inspiring. And if you guys want to understand beginning phases to end phases in the military, along with transition and those big wins in the middle and some interesting things that can happen along the way if you're choosing this as a career or you're just a civilian out there wanting to understand how that world works, this is the podcast for you guys to listen to. What's going on, everybody? Guys, thank you for coming in here and putting up with my bullshit for the next 3 days. I really appreciate it.
Thanks for having us, dude.
Yeah, dude, we had a great dinner last night and excited to have you guys both on at the same time. There's just so much to talk about in a short period of time. You know, Colton's been on the podcast before, but Matt, I'm super excited to have you here, dude. And I kind of start these off with kind of allowing the audience to kind of understand like who you are, where you came from, kind of like the early stages of your life background. It seems to me like it's a pretty similar person that I have on every time. Everyone seems to have a very similar story, you know? Either if they're like a veteran or not a veteran, it seems like our childhoods attract in some way, you know? So take it away.
Yeah. So to your point, we seem like to always bring up the same thing. Got in a lot of trouble when I was a teenager. Got pretty serious for a while and tried, moving into college and realized I need some more structure. So I joined the military and just looking for adventure, structure, kind of get some direction in my life. Went in as a medic, like a regular combat medic. Did my first rep in Iraq in 2004. Moved on, did some more, another one in Iraq, and then I went over to a long-range surveillance unit, infantry, and got Ranger qualified.
What made you want to go into the military other than structure? Did you have like a grandfather or a father that was in the military, or
the
first of its kind?
Really, the most important man in my life was my uncle, my mom's brother. He was Ranger.
Uncle Ray.
And
Uncle Ray. You guys met Uncle Ray.
Yeah. But yeah, he was Ranger, 18 Bravo, Special Forces. I always looked up to him a ton. And he's actually the one, I wanted to go infantry, and he's like, dude, be a medic. He's like, I did all this glorious stuff, and now I kill bugs for a living. He's like, try to pick a specialty that'll give you some skills once you're done with the military. And yeah, he's always just been that guidance for me. So it was kind of natural that I went to the military. My parents were not against it, but more, they're on the liberal side. And so they were supportive of it, just because they knew I did need the structure. Yeah. But yeah, he's been a big guidance for my whole life, my uncle. And through everything, all the ups and downs, he's been there for me a lot. So definitely the driving force there.
Yeah, I think we were chatting in the car on the way to Fresh Market too. You had your grandfather too, right?
Yeah. My grandfather, so his father was a Fulbright colonel. In the medical corps, he actually was one of the leads in starting prosthetics. This is after like Vietnam War. He was part of a huge, really the development of prosthetics where they are. He was really on the beginning of that and really taking it seriously and moving it to the next chapter. So,
it's a super important component.
Yeah.
Because before that there was nothing, right?
Right. That is one of the great things that we get from war is the advancements in medical technology. Every war is just leaps and bounds, and we've seen that with GWAT. Civilian medicine has been expanded, the capability so much just because of what we learned in combat.
I mean, the crazy part for me is I think it was Cody White when I was with Cody Alford when he was teaching a medic course. he held up a tourniquet and said, "We didn't even use these in Vietnam." Right?
Yeah. That's in fact, it started with Ranger Regiment doing like ratchet straps on a deployment. That's how they learned to they were using ratchet straps to shut off.
Wasn't weren't the Israelis using them like way before us or something like that? And then maybe I read into it, but like we were like, that's a big deal, right?
We were behind. Ranger Regiment has actually been like one of the leaders in a lot of the advanced, like the way we do the blood donor stuff.
Yeah.
Live in the field. That all came from Ranger Regiment. The protocols for that. Again, with the tourniquets, the development of that, they really have done an incredible job in expanding medicine and for combat.
Well, they were like one of the first units to have like a zero avoidable deaths on the battlefield. So like anything like shots to the extremity, like they were all wrapped up with a tourniquet. Like if you weren't shot directly in the face or like in the heart, then they survived. And it was because of like how far ahead they're on the cutting edge of. They do that all the time. Those Ranger medics are awesome, man.
When Matt was explaining to Jackie at dinner the other night about like how he has his blood prepared, like, in his kit and stuff.
Oh, yeah.
Jackie was like, and she's in medicine. She's like, we get in bed that night. She's like, can you imagine if you just walked around all day with just like a fucking pint of blood in your bag? I was like, nope, I don't really know. I can't. But Colton, how about for you? Like I've heard it before, but I think it's important to hear like some of the reasons why you might feel the military is right for a young man or a young woman.
Man, for me, like the reason I joined when I was young, I for as young as I can remember, and even before that, I mean, I always talked about being in the military. I felt a calling to serve. I was super patriotic. I wanted to serve my country. That was probably most of the reason. And then the other side of it was I wanted to learn skills. I looked at those dudes, all the movies that I watched, like Heartbreak Ridge and like all these different things that I found these like military leaders and badasses, honestly. I mean, that's what I looked at and wanted to emulate. I wanted to be that dude. I wanted to be John Rambo. And so
I take you more for like a Red Dawn.
Yeah, for sure. I've seen that movie a million times.
Me too. I love
Wolverines. But like finding those like finding those military guys like in the movie era that I grew up in was super big on my life. And then kind of the same thing. I had random throughout my life. I said I was going to be in the Army until I was like 13 or 14, and my cousin joined the Marine Corps. He came back from boot camp with like dress blues on, and I was like, dude, what is that? He's like, what? He said, what is the Marine Corps? I was like, yeah, what is that? And he's like, it's like the Army, but better. And I was like, then I'm doing that. So that's what was like my driving force, was like whatever was going to be the hardest thing. I thought I was like joining Delta Force when I joined the Marine Corps, We didn't have it wasn't as prevalent, like all the information about the services on the internet back then. So there was no real, there were books you could read, but I watched, Full Metal Jacket and was like, this is what it's like. And so I just joined the Marine Corps.
When you either got off that bus or train or plane or whatever it was to get to your first engagement and interaction with the military, like what was that feeling? Do you remember like how you felt when you got off the bus? And
I immediately thought, I have made a massive mistake. Because that was my first time I flew on a plane. I'm from middle of nowhere, Louisiana. I fly on a plane for the first time into Parris Island, South Carolina. And as I'm like getting off the plane, some dude in the drill instructor hat just comes running up and he's just screaming. And I was like, dude, what are you so upset for? I had no clue what I was signing up for.
So whenever you fly into my house for South Carolina, do you have like a flashback?
That's what's so funny is like, man, here I am, I come full circle. This is back to where my career started as I'm starting my civilian career.
Yeah.
And I'm right around the corner from Parris Island.
Yeah,
it's pretty wild.
So many
Pretty
people
cool.
come up to me from the event that fly from out of town that are Marines and be like, dude, I really don't like this town that much, dude.
I need a drink now.
Yeah, exactly. But no, it's cool. And a lot of the guys go back and visit when they're there for the event too. A couple guys stay on base at their RV park and stuff because it's open to you guys, to stay there. But how about you?
Yeah, pretty similar. Within the first 24 hours, I got gut punched for the first time, and I had a massive problem with authority. Hence, a year and a half of high school spent in juvie, and but that's one of the reasons I needed it. And, we're a little bit older. We went back in the day when it was, basic training was a little bit different than it is now. I don't see
Were there
any
females there then or no? Very few?
Not the one I went to. Yeah, you did have some that were both female. The one when I went to AIT as a medic, we had females in that, but basic training was all male.
Okay.
But yeah, I got my ass kicked pretty quickly, and just getting smoked for the first time, and I was like, "Whoa, dude!" I kind of knew a little bit about that coming in, but having experienced a smoking session for the first time, you're like, "Wow, this is gonna suck."
Yeah, I thought my drill instructors were super professional and super huge, in shape dudes. So I was like, dude, these guys are gonna be beating the crap out of me for the next 3 months, and I'm not prepared for that. Yeah. But I thought it was, boot camp is boot camp. There were no women there at Parris Island. They're not like in your group. They're in a separate boot camp, all on their own. So we would occasionally, like walking by, would see other female Marines on the base because it's there at Parris Island.
That must have been a treat.
No, dude. Have you ever walked into a chicken coop, like a big chicken, chicken farm? That's what it sounds like. It's just when you hear screaming female voices, it's just super high pitched. And you're like, oh, dude, I don't want to be around over there.
That's great. So, how long after boot camp were you deployed for the first time?
I went through boot camp in 2008, and then I got to my unit, and we got word that we were going to Afghanistan. It was supposed to be 2009. It ended up being bumped up. We ended up doing a workup all the way through 2009.
What's a workup?
The Marine Corps is preparing for your deployment. And so started going to a bunch of schools and doing a bunch of deployment packages and doing a lot of training, getting ready to go. We thought we were going in 2009. I think it was originally supposed to be Iraq, and then the mission changed. And unlike eventually, later on in my career, unlike SF where we would just adapt, that wasn't the case for the Marine Corps. We completely revamped and did another training.
Oh,
we went back into a different training cycle, and then deployed to Afghanistan in 2010. So,
how about you, Matt?
Yeah, I got in 2001, so it was actually prior to 9/11. And I was, right out of high school, basic training. So my first apartment.
Where did you go to basic training? I mean, to boot camp?
At Benning.
Oh, okay.
At Benning, yeah. And so right when I got back, it was within a week of me moving into my first apartment, on the news, on the morning, 9/11 happens. And I remember I was actually talking to Sarah, my current wife, who I was friends with at the time. I happened to be on the phone with her, and I was like, guess I'm going to war. Oh, someone's going to pay for this. So it really kind of changed everything. I knew right away, what I had planned on for my military career, was about to be completely different. And then 2004 is when I deployed to Iraq for the first time.
So you were a Marine first as well?
Army. I've been Army the whole time.
Army the whole time,
Yep.
That's right.
Yep.
And then that first deployment was in, what town was it?
We were kind of all across the Al-Anbar province, so the western half of the country. We went over, I was in a medical company. And then, so we had males and females, and they took all the males and just attached them to infantry.
Okay.
So I was with 10th Mountain Infantry for a while. I was with the 2nd Marine Expeditionary Force. The area we were at, they lost so many corpsmen, combat loss, that they had to start pulling Army medics, which the Marines were not happy about. But after I got to work on the first guy, and it changed quickly. So,
if I can ask, what was that like was the first person that you came into action with and had to help in pretty bad shape?
Yeah, it's that experience is very vivid for me. It was a daisy chain IED. I was doing convoy support, so multiple blasts all along the convoy, and so I had five patients, 2 Americans and 3 were local national truck drivers, supply truck drivers, and they were spread out about 200 meters. And I didn't, a CCP, casualty collection point, consolidating all your patients, is a pretty standard thing. I'm fucking new, and, so the end of the story, I ended up sprinting up and down, working on people. But I do remember the first dude I walked up to, it was pretty significant trauma, leg blown apart, arm blown apart. And I remember just your brain processing, that is not what a human body is supposed to look like. And in my head, I ran up and just froze solid for 5 minutes. I talked to a buddy after the fact. I was like, dude, I told you. He's like, you stuttered, stepped for maybe a second, man, and then went to work. It was just interesting how my brain processed it. I thought that time completely froze. it's just crazy because in those, and that's the first time I experienced that in my life, of that super high adrenaline, sympathetic nervous system going crazy on how the time fluctuations and how your brain perceives it. It's
Did he live?
He did. All of them lived. All 5 patients made it. I was able to tourniquet him, and we had some other help. A lot of guys came down, and I was putting people to work on all the casualties. So I had someone working on each casualty, but they, and then I would just sprint up and down, and make sure to check. But like, all right, do this now, and it ended up working out. So, but it was wild, man. For the first time, I'll always remember it.
As like a medic in that like high pace, high energy, like having to stay really like dialed in and like. Analyzing who needs what and who needs the most attention. Have there, I mean, I know you and I know you've done a lot in that world, right? Are there situations that have just been a blur because it was just so insane?
It has.
You just don't even remember treating somebody?
There has been, 100%. And that's been great. You get enough reps in. That's the whole point. A lot of our training is becoming muscle memory. It's the same thing with medicine as with all the other fighting that we do.
Yeah.
So there's plenty that I really, it's just, I knew that I was doing things, but it is just kind of, and then you got to piece together, all right, what happened next when you're writing up the report afterwards? Because
I think a lot of it too is like exposure, right? Because like you were a regular Army medic. You're probably feeling outside your element. You're attached with these Marines. Like you're trying to fit in. You're trying to like get along, build this rapport with these guys. You kind of feel out of the loop, and then this traumatic event happens, and now you're kind of rocked on your heels, and also trying to perform your job. And like I know we've talked about this outside of the podcast before, but like my first gunfight, I know that I was more afraid of being thought less of like by my peers than I was of actually getting shot. And so like I would imagine that is the same for you in this scenario. Like, well, shit, now it's time for me to do my job, and everybody is constantly assessing me. Like, do you feel like I feel like that's what kind of goes away with time and exposure to those events? Like, do you feel the same?
Yeah, I absolutely do. And that's one of the biggest parts of a medic is keeping the cool, maintaining like a calm. Just the patient really does do a lot better. And that's your job. You got to keep everything calm down. And I remember struggling that first time, really, having to dig deep. You're like, I have to make sure, even though I'm going crazy in my mind, I got to make sure I'm being cool. Being green and new to it was hard. And like you said, after time, it just becomes a flow. You feel natural, and you just figure out how to.
Yeah.
The best medics I've worked with, I'd say like that's the number one thing, is they're so. Like it feels like mass chaos is going on, but when they're talking to that patient, they're like, "Hey, dude, you're gonna be fine. Like I'm here with you. We're gonna work through this. All right, hey, I need you to roll." they go to work, but like their voice says, "Hey, bro, you're gonna be fine. Like you're gonna, no matter what it looks like." That's like the big.
Not like the operation on your ear.
Yeah,
I'm normally fine in that situation. It was just freaking brutal. I took Colton to get his cauliflower ear fixed, and when the plastic surgeon cut his ear open. It was like scraping out like 3-week-old blood. Yeah. It was coming out in chunks, but it was like stuck to his skin in his ear. And I was just like, oh no. Yeah. Oh my God. Dude. Oh God. And
the second, like, they're like, I can feel a lot of force going into my ear. It's like pinned up against my head, and he's like scalpel in there, dragging stuff out. But the whole time, Sydney's like, "Oh my God, I can't watch. Oh my God, it's so bad." And he runs out of the room, and then like comes back. And he's like, "Oh God, it's just
it was horrible, dude." And I was like, "That was really not a great performance." But like,
he's like dry heaving and running out of the room.
It was you could smell like like flesh that was just being like torn open. And I mean, I did the same thing when I saw my first C-section. Like, you can come around the corner now, and my like ex-wife's like guts are on like a table next to her. I'm like, all right, dude, I'll be back over here. Like, when it's someone you care about, it's a different type of thing. But I learned from that. My daughter slammed her finger when she was like 2.5 in the sliding glass, and just the whole finger just imploded. And I don't know if you remember that. It was like really bad. She had to get like these crazy spider web stitches everywhere and stuff. But like I was like, and she was freaking out, and Jax wasn't doing so well. And I'm like, "You're the fucking nurse, dude." She's like, "It's our daughter." I'm like, "All right, well, fucking." So I kind of like put it back together, and like, we get to the hospital, and the doctor's like, "Wow, you did a really good job here." I'm like, "Thanks, dude." I'm like, "But I can't watch anymore. Like, I got to go in the other room," But what was the escalation of your career going from like that Army medic to then deciding you're going to go to like SF and continue on that? Because I'm assuming the training as an SF a medic is a lot more intense than maybe just an Army medic, right?
Yeah, it was. Like Colton said, we didn't have the internet, and even though my uncle, was a Ranger, jumped into Panama, was all this. He never really. I mean, I knew he served. But I didn't know all that stuff. I had no idea about any of that stuff when I first got in. And I slowly started building up. And when I was with that long-range surveillance company, that's really when I started learning. I did an Afghanistan trip in 2010 with them. And we had 5th Group was on the base with us. And that's really the first extended exposure. I had some on other trips that were shorter.
What did you think of those guys when you were hanging around with them? Could you tell it was a different breed of people?
I absolutely could. The biggest example was our base got attacked, and a couple guys actually got inside. And one of the SF guys from the top of a building, dude had a suicide vest on, was just sprinting towards the cafe. And dude's on top of a building. It was like probably 50 meters with a pistol and dropped the guy with a headshot as he was running. I was like, okay, I want to be like that dude.
You know that dude talked to his team and was like, bro, straight luck.
Yeah, I know that shit now.
It's a full sprint headshot at 50 meters. He's like,
It was actually buckshot in that pistol.
You wouldn't believe it. There was some regular Army medic over there, and he saw it and looked up at me. And I was like,
That's great. Yeah, I mean, so did you go to Ranger Regiment first, or did you go right to
Yeah, I just got Ranger qual, just with the Ranger school. I didn't do any time in Ranger Regiment.
Okay.
It was just that LURS company, and then to be a team leader, E5 or above, you had to be Ranger qualified to be on a LURS team. So that's when I started that whole career path, and that's when I actually switched over to infantry as my primary. So that I could fill that role. And I still, even when I was a team leader, guys still call me Doc. I've always done medicine for my whole career. I love it, man. It's a calling I've had. I learned that in 2004 on my trip to Iraq. I just getting to do this is I got to personally save my friends' lives, man. I mean, holy shit. How profound is that? So I've continued down that path. And then, just being in the LURS, I learned more about the other options there. And there's a few of us after that Afghanistan trip who went SF from the LURS company. Well, kind of my closest friends. We all kind of popped smoke at the same time and all went to selection.
So what was that like showing up there? Was that like a different feeling from boot camp?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, you got to feel the similarities of standing formation and doing that stuff. I'm
saying about the way that you were treated. Did you feel like you felt like you didn't belong when you got to boot camp? You're like, oh, I made this fucking mistake. But when you went to SF training or selection or whatever, or Q, were you like, yeah, this is where I need to be?
Yeah. I definitely felt like it was the right choice. I'd actually made E7 with the LURS and took a bump down. During SFAS, they can approve you to keep your 7, but it just doesn't make sense on an SF team because I was so new in. Because I would have made E8, which is a team sergeant, quickly, and that just you need some time. There's no reason why a brand new dude should be a team sergeant. So I took a bust and rank down to E6 and went through the Q course. I always felt, and I chose medicine. I'd had a lot of experience there, so it felt right going through. I knew it was the right choice.
What with what you can say or are comfortable say, what was the most intense part of Q course for you?
The medic course, man, in terms of intellectual, it's 9 months, but it is all med school plus surgery, dental, veterinary medicine, all crammed into 9 months. And I actually had a biology degree, a bachelor's degree before that, a bunch of medic experience, and still, man, I was studying my friends in the course with me who were just infantry, zero higher education, I was like, dude, I'm super, it's impressive. Because it was it has a very high attrition rate for that reason, is because it is very difficult tests.
Didn't you went straight through though? You didn't recycle any phases? And I know probably 3-4 dudes that I was in the Q course with that went straight through. Most dudes recycle a phase of that 9-month portion. Some of the smartest dudes that I've met have washed out of that course and couldn't keep up. It is a difficult course, man.
Yeah.
And Matt is one of those few dudes that went straight through. And
you guys met each other there?
Yep.
Yeah.
Huh.
Yeah, we had Pete Lampman is a good. He went through the medic course with me, and he is one of the smartest guys I've ever met. He's a surgeon now, and we did the whole thing. The medic course is the longest qualification course, like start to finish, just because of that 9 month at the beginning.
9 months before you even start trying to be a Green Beret.
Yeah,
It's just on the front end before you even start anything.
Oh shit! So you have to pass that.
Yep.
And then you go through the process.
They've switched around the order that they do things.
Yeah.
So I'm not even quite sure where it's currently sitting, but that's how it was with me. But Pete and I talked at the beginning. We're like, dude, we're not taking. They'll sometimes give you options between phases to take a break, and we're like, this is gonna be a long time anyways, dude. Let's just. So it was nice. I had a friend to really kind of motivate each other and keep going. Like, no, dude, we don't need a break. Keep pushing. Let's get through this son of a bitch.
Are you married at this time?
Yes. Yeah. And that was actually. I applied to med school and thought of that as an option. Did decent on the MCAT, got some interviews lined up, and I talked to Sarah. I'd always wanted to do that, and I was like, listen, let me give SFAS a shot, and if it works out, cool. If not, we'll go with this other route. And it did, so that was the way it was intended to be.
What is the standard training for just anybody on the team? What was the training Colton would get as a medic? Are there advanced classes that you take as time goes on?
Yeah, I was a SOFAC, so I went through a course to provide a stopgap for if we didn't have enough medics, if we didn't have enough 18 deltas, which I think there's pretty much consistently a shortage of 18 deltas.
Yeah, he was telling me the other day, almost like a dying. It was and kind of still is a dying breed, right?
Yeah, it's hard because the attrition rate's so high, and it's difficult to get through it. So
there's just in every combat deployment you go on now, you need a medic to leave the wire, and so this course SOFAC was designed to bridge that gap. But really, man, I've had great medics throughout my career, Jordan Jones, which he's coming in town this weekend. But I've had some fantastic medics that I've been fortunate to be on a team with. They're all about cross training. So anything that's trauma medicine, everybody on the team should be spun up to that. And I know Matt has taken his team. We've talked about how he was training his team. He was training his dudes on the trauma side, but also going a little bit more in depth, on that cross training. Just because I'm a weapons and tactics expert doesn't mean that I'm the only dude that should be an expert at tactics on the team. Everybody on the team should do it. And that's my job, is to get everybody else trained up to this level. Same thing with the medics. Just because he's a medic, he should be treating mass casualty stuff. He's the one for absolute worst case scenario or super advanced stuff. Everything else, everybody else on the team should be able to do.
And the other motivation is, what happens when I get banged up?
Yep.
Yeah.
It's on me to make sure my boys can take care of me.
Yeah.
Yeah,
that's the reason I went to. That's the reason I went to the SOFAC course. Was, man, I would have reoccurring nightmares that it was my buddy that was shot on the ground, and I was standing there with medical stuff, and man, if only I had done more medical training, I wish I could save this dude's life. And that kind of stopped happening to me after I went through the SOFAC course. Once I fell in love with the medicine, and I was like, man, now I can help my 18 deltas in a lot of ways on the advanced side of things. Prolonged field care, all these other things. I'm now an asset to the team. I know that that's not going to happen.
Explain real quick, how that works. So you have someone who's a specialist in something on a team, whether it's medic, weapons, comms, and they most of them have a junior. Is that correct?
Mm-hmm.
So there's 6 seniors and 6 juniors. Is that right, or something along those lines?
Typically, you'll have a little bit different, but 12 dudes with a senior and a junior is the standard for each.
And then it's each one of your responsibilities to teach the rest of the team what you know.
Yeah. Yep.
Correct?
Mm-hmm.
Got it. And then when does that junior typically kick in? Do they kick in always on your team, or are they transferred sometimes, or?
Man, it's different from place to place. Active duty is a lot different than the guard teams are. Because there's guys constantly leaving. Whereas the guard, we have a much better retention rate. Dudes aren't getting out. They're not leaving the team because it's a different experience. But because I know so many guys that have been forced into the senior position right out of the Q course, guard and active. When you show up to a team and there is no 18 Delta on the team, you're the only 18 Delta, even though you just graduated the course.
Never been in combat.
You're the senior medic now. And so that's just the way it works. I've seen a lot of, and a good company command, I think what their job is from the leadership aspect is to give those junior dudes to strong teams that where like the team sergeant was a former 18 Delta. And now you're putting this new guy on that team. Yeah, he's the senior medic, but also their team sergeant was a medic for 12 years.
Yeah,
so doesn't always shake out like that, but.
So you guys both deployed without children, right? And then you guys deployed with children. What was the mindset difference, if any, when after you, I mean, I know Colton's story about trying to get home in time for childbirth. I mean, I hear that often, right? Because it's like, you know, number one, you don't want to let down your wife and not be there when she's going through probably the most pain she's ever endured in her entire life, right? Number two, you don't want to be there to miss this like pivotal moment in your life, because I know when I had Jada, everything just instantly everything changed really quick, right? And the shit became real, right? I remember now they have car seats that actually fit these children, but like I remember putting her in the back seat of my car in the car seat, and the car seat was like 10 times bigger than her body, and I drove home like I was driving Miss Daisy.
I did the same thing. Sarah still makes fun of me about it. Like, you drive like a psychopath all the time, but when it's 5 miles an hour
that,
the whole way.
Yeah, no, dude, it was crazy. And then I get home and I'm like, oh my God, now there's like no nurse here to help me.
Yeah.
And then there's no like playbook, you know what I mean?
No.
And like social media wasn't great 20 years ago to like, or self-help books weren't there, you know? I'm like, and I can't barely read. There was no books on tape, you know? So I'm like calling my boys, dude, what the fuck do I do? Yeah, what was that? What were those two feelings like? Is there a difference, or is it just like when you're deployed, and that's like your only focus, and like you know that has to be your only focus, or fucking bad things happen, or like what is that? What's that like?
I do want to say one. I'm not sure how the Marine Corps is, but in terms of your child being born, the Army does a pretty good job if it's your firstborn. Like even if you're in combat, deployed, of getting you home for the birth. I was actually kind of impressed to see that. You know, they say a lot of things, but I personally saw it a lot. Guys making sure that they were able to get home, at least be there for the birth, and then come back over.
What do you get, about a week or two before you have to come back?
It's something like that. Yeah, I didn't do that myself, but it's somewhere around there. Enough time to be there.
What I mean, even when so like, but on that deployment, like when you go back and you know you just had this kid and you're in combat, like are you thinking differently? Because you now have this like little boy or this little girl, or
yeah, I mean it's just like any job. Having kids changes your perspective on life. You know, I was close to my wife, but I guess you get a much deeper understanding of your own mortality once you have kids. You obviously there's a lot you want to watch out for yourself and make sure you get home to your wife and all that. But once you have kids, man, you have to get home. There's no other option, but you need to get home. You have to balance that with I'm going to do anything. Like I'm ready to die for my teammates, and so there's a dichotomy there that you have to balance in your head. And we, like I could say it like I'm going to choose my team when I'm deployed. It's the way it is, man. We have to be that way. It's not that I care less about my children, but
well, I think so. Like on that note, and this is a conversation I've had with my wife, with Ashley.
Fucking serious statement.
Yeah.
I mean, but I mean, I know you and I know it's real.
Yeah.
You know?
But also, I think like one of the things that me and my wife have like specifically sat down and talked about is, look, as long as I die for something that I believe in, like I'm okay with it. I signed up for this job. This is what I want to do. I'm going to do my job to the best of my abilities. And we get really good at compartmentalizing, and I think it's a coping mechanism we develop. And I think it turns into a problem later on for a lot of us, but where we live in this like 3-foot bubble of like, we go on these deployments and it's like life or death decisions only. Life or death decisions, and so you start to live in this like 3 to 5 minute.
Explain that to me. Like, what do you mean? Like,
I cannot be thinking about the long lasting repercussions of me getting shot if I don't cover my sector. I just need to focus on covering my sector.
Got it. Just do your job.
Do my job in the right here, right now, in what is in this room, and then we'll work on the next room when we get to the next room.
And you got to be in the moment.
And then when you get back, you're like. You shake it off. But like in that moment, if I'm in this room and I'm not dealing with what's in this room mentally, I'm thinking about what's back home or we just get so good at compartmentalizing that and be like, nope, can't think about that. back home doesn't exist right this second. But I can definitely say it gives you more cause for hesitation, especially like on the planning side of things. Like when you're planning out operations as a young dude with not a whole lot of experience, being in the Marine Corps on my first deployment where I wasn't married and I didn't have kids, I wasn't thinking about it. I didn't have to block out those thoughts. I didn't have to pretend that back home didn't exist. I was in the here, in the now, the whole time. I wanted the experience. I was chasing something. I was chasing an achievement. I wanted to prove, that I was competent to myself and to my peers. I wanted the combat. Then later on, as an SF dude with wife and kids, now I'm sitting there like in the planning phase, like, dude, this doesn't make sense. This doesn't make sense. And like it adds a little bit more scrutiny to the job.
Well, I mean, there could be a positive side of that too, because you're kind of slowing down and thinking more methodically as well too. Like, I went through a large phase of my life especially when I was in the mortgage business, to where like I would just, something would come to my brain and I would just fucking go act on it, right? Yeah. In business. And probably a portion of the reason why I'm not in the mortgage business anymore, right? But like the other side of it too is like when you kind of do learn how important a situation is, whether you have kids or not, and you really slow your brain down and really think about that whole process. Sometimes it takes a trigger like that to do that.
Yeah.
Probably made you better in some aspects, right?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, what do you think?
Yeah, no, I definitely agree. I mean, it's more of a mature mindset, and it helps you teach, and that's what. As you're moving up and you get higher rank and you have more influence there, making sure you're planning and I mean, accomplishing the missions first and foremost, but making sure all the boys come home, obviously, and so making sure that you're doing all those checks and balances and doing a full mission analysis, wargaming it to death, and making sure every little possible contingency that you can plan for is taken care of.
Colton was talking to me yesterday about like a perspective that Tyler kind of put into his head. And I was sitting there just kind of thinking about that whole outline of like, childhood trauma, life trauma. Like, I obviously don't ever try to compare the two, but there's similarities of transitioning inside the military to like losing a job, or one of the biggest things is I have a really, really good friend who played in the NFL. He had the best game of his life, walked in the locker room. The next day, the coach calls him and cuts him. And it was like a 7-year career. And he had the best game of his life, and it was over. And he went through some major, major issues with that. I mean, football players are very, very similar. I would say probably rugby, football are the two very most closest sports played in a very high level to the amount of head trauma that is endured. Obviously, after watching that movie with you, having a fighter jet fly by fucking 80 feet over your head and just stir up an entire street. Like, I sat there in bed that night thinking about, wow, that must have really fucking rocked some dudes. You know what I mean? And then the bombs went, but that constant, like, medium-sized trauma, not like an IUD, but just crashing. And I was thinking about what you were saying the other day about like, because I'm pretty hard on myself too, right? And I'm thinking about it was yesterday, I think. Yeah. And I last night when I was just sitting there, I was like, man, I fucking am like super hard on myself, right? I'm like I'm my worst enemy by far, worst enemy. Yeah. Like, I have certain people in my life, especially like Mel, that like when I'm not doing well, he'll like be like, dude, you're being a dummy, like, call me out and stuff. But like the thoughts that go through my mind on a daily basis of like, making sure that I don't let anyone down, and that like a very difficult business situation comes in, or a family matter, and I have to pretend like that's just okay and just fucking handle it. I mean, obviously the amount of things that you see build up to this like calloused thing in your brain that you just have to go ahead and work through at the time, right? And I'm also a believer that like that little bit of psycho keeps you guys alive. Well, yeah. And it's necessary.
Yeah. I've had this conversation with a lot of people. I think there's a lot of high performer dudes, whether it's special operations or it's business or it's whatever. We have this little voice in the back of our head that tells us we're never good enough. Like no matter what I do, no matter what I strive to achieve, it's never going to be good enough. Number one, that's the reason we're in these high performing spots, is like that desire to prove something to myself and to others is what led me to achieve good things. So in that way, it's positive. But in the long run, it is a negative thing. Like where I'm constantly, there is no achievement that will fill that gap for me. And like starting to realize that now, that it's not about the next achievement. The next achievement that I go after is for me, not to fill that gap, not to answer that voice in my head that's saying I'm not enough because I haven't achieved enough.
You guys will probably agree with this one. Like, so my coping mechanism for that is going over and above for like even a person I don't even know.
Yeah.
Right. Because I feel like maybe in the back of my mind, I feel like I could have done better somewhere else. Mm-hmm. And I could have achieved more, or I could have helped the situation forward better. And then when I don't do that, I'm like, I'm internally depressed, not externally depressed. And then all of a sudden I'll have an opportunity to help somebody, and selfishly I'll just like, here, like, well, how can I do like, and it's really actually it's okay to do it in some situations. But in some situations I turn into like an enabler, and it's pretty fucked up. Yeah.
Well, we've had this discussion, man. I am loyal to a fault to my friends. And like it's a flaw that I have. I know that if I say that this dude's my friend, I stop looking for the reciprocation. Like I will let it become a one-sided thing where this dude is providing zero value. He's providing negative value. He's dragging me down. All the red flags are there. This dude is he's a weight, an anchor on my life. But I'm like, nah, bro, that's my friend. He could stab me in the back and I'll be like, dude, what was that about?
Every time I go out with you, I get arrested.
He could stab me in the back and I'll take the knife out and like throw my arm around and be like, bro, what was that about? And that's my problem, is I become loyal to a fault. And I pride myself on it. And like now that I see that, I start to really like the past year, I've been like really analyzing situations, because I know that I have that inner voice that I'm fighting, but I need to like weigh when we're spending so much time on fixing ourselves. I need to be surrounded by, and dude, especially the last year, being surrounded by a group of dudes who are also looking to push you. Just like you said, when that voice starts getting the better of you, Mel comes around and slaps some sense into you. Like that's what I need. I don't need somebody who's just a dead weight and he's not ever going to do anything for himself or for me. I need to like learn and realize like, hey, this relationship isn't taking me to the next place. Like it's doing nothing for me and nothing for him. He won't listen to my advice, and he's not going to help himself or me. So like I need to separate myself.
It also helps a lot when you were that dead weight to people at one point in your life.
Yep.
Like that
I think that's my greatest fear, is like not being an asset.
I mean, I was a freaking complete loser for like 5 years of my life, dude. It was like I was just a poor me. I'd capitalize on any opportunity that I can. I'd be hurtful. I wouldn't be like mindful of people's feelings. I just didn't care, right? And then all of a sudden, that doesn't go well for so long. You know what I mean? Then all of a sudden you're sitting in an apartment by yourself, fucking with a shitload of drugs and alcohol around you, and you're just like, this sucks. Yeah. And then, you know, hopefully you make the right changes, right? And I think it's important. I mean, for me, part of my whole journey was being on that side and not wanting to ever treat anyone like that, right? Yeah. But just like you said, you can kind of go overboard with it sometimes. Yeah. So being on the teams and stuff, you know, Colton said something to me like a while ago. He's like, you know, there's some guys that are a liability you have to deploy with, and there's some guys that you would just always like have no problem going to war. And unfortunately, the liabilities sometimes end up in the same plane as you. And what's that like, knowing like you're going into a real fucking situation and there's a liability there? I've been dying to ask you this question.
Yeah, we actually just experienced
so you guys know, Matt doesn't put up with too much shit.
I experienced that to an extreme on the last deployment I did, and it was, of course, captain, but that's not always the case. My team was a very senior team. Like technically my junior on my team, other medic, was a physician assistant civilian side. He was 10th group active duty. He was he was an assaulter with Delta Force. He had actually gotten out and then missed the teams, and so he got back in. Just phenomenal guy. So we had a ton of experience, and so they put a very, very green captain with us. And he was a liability to a point of us having to like devise a plan on things turn kinetic, like how are we going to deal with him so he doesn't get anyone banged up. You have a tight team.
And you have to do that behind his back.
Yes. Was not a common situation at all. So I don't want to make it sound that way. It was just an unfortunate thing that we had to do.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's even if it's not common, you have like these super high-end operators that have, not to say your life isn't worth anything, but have millions and millions of dollars in training invested in them.
Right.
And that guy's treating it like he's a fucking hamster in a wheel, probably.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like that's a pretty fucking, even if it happens once, it's like a big deal. Even if it happens to infantry, it's a big deal, right? I mean,
I saw it in the infantry. Honestly, that's like one of my favorite things about my service is I got to see fantastic leadership, and I got to work with some of the most competent people on the face of the planet. But I also got to see really bad leadership and like what that does to a team. And Jocko does a lot on like there's no such thing as a good or a bad team, only good or bad leaders. And man, I've seen that proven true time and time again. You can take the most elite high performers, but you give them a bad leader, and he might be able to coast for a while.
It's like a football team.
At some point, he's going to degrade the relationships enough that it starts to affect the job. That leader will. And that's the same in every, Corps Medical doesn't get to be what it is if they don't have great leadership at the head. I am a firm believer in the leadership sets the tone for everybody else. And I've seen it from the Marine Corps, man. I had a platoon sergeant that was just, dude, I've been in a gunfight before shooting at the enemy, and my platoon sergeant is like, Lance Corporal Hill, you need to blouse your boots. Why don't you have your iPro on? I'm like, bro, we can deal with this later. Shut up. Like there are more pressing matters right now, right this second, than me blousing my boots.
You definitely didn't have your ear pros on.
yeah, that's true. But I've seen it from that extreme. I've seen it to like my platoon sergeant stopped sleeping in the staff NCO hut and started sleeping in the like lower enlisted hut because he was afraid that someone was going to kill him. I had dreams of him tied to a chair and me hitting him with a baseball bat.
Oh,
like,
really?
I
Sick.
hated that human being.
What are some of the most, maybe like one or two of the most important characteristics of a team leader? I mean, you ran a team.
Yeah.
What do you feel like was the most impactful thing that you did as a team leader to make your team a team?
I think there's a couple different scenarios, but for the extreme side, like a combat, really just like I talked about the importance of the medic staying cool as a team leader, making sure like no matter what's happening, man, we got this. We're always going to win. Everyone stay cool. We know your jobs. And that leader making sure that they are displaying that, not just saying that and showing everyone how to be. I've seen that a couple times and felt it myself. Like in a really nasty situation, I'm like, oh, we're good, dude. We're good. We got this. I'm like, oh my God, I'm going to die. And I look over, see him cool and collected. Hey, dude, here. You go there.
Yep.
And I'm like, yeah, dude, we freaking got this. And I remember how much of a profound effect that had on me. And then I've always remembered that specific experience going forward, getting into those situations and going back to that in my mind, being like, dude, that's what these boys need.
Because everything could have been a lot different with like, oh my God, we're fucked.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So, the same exact thing. Even with the bad higher level leadership, like in the Marine Corps, I had these squad leaders that I looked up to and adored. Like there were two of our three squad leaders were absolutely incredible. Just calm, cool, collected. Like we're getting shot at and dude's taking a knee and he's like, hey, in about 3 minutes, I'm going to have you. You're just like, bro, what?
Yeah.
I'm in the prone. I'm trying to hide my whole body from these gunshots. And he's like, nah, it's not that far. Like he's just so far removed and so confident and so calm and collected and dude, we're fine. Like you're gonna crush this.
I had an interaction with he's a patient, and I got to talk to him, and when he got on a team, a really good friend of mine was in charge of that team, and he was like, they were driving in the armored vehicle they're going through, and all of a sudden they just start getting shot at, and he gets out and he's like hiding, and the other dude just like, he's been a senior for a while. He's like, oh, that's like 300 meters. He's got an AK. He's got an AK. And he just like calmly sat down, just waited, and just poof, and like out in the open. Yep. And the guy's like shitting himself. You know what I mean? He's like, dude, I was so petrified. And then I actually made him tell the story in front of the dude at one time. And he's like, yeah, but what would you do now?
Yep.
The same thing. Right. Yep. So it's like all that type of stuff. Like, and that was the guy in charge, and he just was like, yeah, this is no big deal. Like, I've been here 100 times.
Well, that's so like talking to this squad leader, it's like, man, years later, I'm like, dude, that moment was so impactful for me. And he's like, dude, I knew exactly. He said, when we made eye contact, I knew exactly what you were thinking and what you were feeling because I've been in the exact same spot on my first deployment. Exactly. He's like, dude, I know what you're thinking. He's like, I know what you need. What you need from me is that reassurance, that calm, cool, collected voice of like, hey, I'm here, dude. I'm making decisions. We're not rushing. We're fine. And then seeing it on the other side, like in SF, man, I was very fortunate. I had incredible leadership on my first ODA. Those two guys, I would do anything for. I had a fantastic officer that was prior enlisted, that his first deployment was in Fallujah as like a 18-year-old little kid that was scared to death and was not infantry and ended up doing infantry jobs and then gets out and comes back as an officer. Like that was my captain knew everything about my team. He was always with the team, always helping rapport. And also when things would get bad, he was that voice of like, hey bro, he would do one of two things. If the team needed a prod, he would be the prod and it would be effortless. If the team needed like the cool voice of like, whoa. Yeah. How many bad dudes are there? We're not rushing into this fight. Like he was, dude, he would lay out the doctrine or he would lay out the leadership principles. Like he was always that calm, reassuring voice. And on the other side, we had a team sergeant that was, like jumped into Panama and was like, just super, super experienced, former Ranger Regiment guy that's an E8, that's been an E8 for 9 years. He was just because he didn't want to be a sergeant major, he wanted to stay on a team, and he somehow was able to make that happen. He was pretty sick. He was amazing. But what I saw from him was he cared about the mission, obviously. But second of all, he cared about the dudes. Like first, we have to achieve the mission, right? But second of all is the level of importance is my guys. It wasn't command. It wasn't what command thinks of me when the mission is done. It's we get the job done and my dudes are taken care of. My team is taken care of.
So I know 80% of your transition, right? And I stayed in super close contact with Colton and Mike, and when they've deployed the past 2 times, right? I'm like a smuggler, I send them packages and shit. It's like my favorite part of the thing in the world, but just Coca-Colas and stuff, and the
Coca-Colas and Yingling
in a Yingling package. Yeah, it was, I was like a hero and no one knew me.
Yeah, for sure.
It was pretty dope, but I know that last deployment you're super fed up and you're calling out leadership, and I was on the phone. I talked to him for like hours on the phone at night. He'd be like, dude, this is like wild. And I'd be like,
you listened for hours.
Listened for hours. And I'd look at Jackie and I'd be like falling asleep. She's like, hit me, like, stay on the fucking phone with him. And but it was like, intense. You're putting yourself in that situation where like you have, like in business, 20% of your people doing 80% of the work. Yep. And that's like a horrible place to be. And I try not to allow that to happen because I'm very cognizant I've seen it so many times in businesses of seeing one person come off the gas, that ripple effect, and then you just have one performer that like is holding it down. And like, I don't let that shit happen. Like as soon as I start seeing someone come off the gas, it's like, hey dude, come in here. Like, what can I do to help you? Yeah. Blah, 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 blah. I know that was a big deciding factor in your transition right now.
Well, I think to be at that place as a leader, you have to have your finger on the pulse. Like you have to be in the weeds with your team to see that that's happening. Because I think like one of the things that I've seen in leadership is the easy answer of like not being involved in everything and being like, well, man, actually nobody's really checking up on me. I'm just checking up on other people. And like, that's the selfish answer. And I see that happening more and more in a leadership position where, because man, I never saw that problem like in all of the ODAs, like in the other teams that I was on growing
What's
up
an ODA?
SF. Operational Detachment Alpha, so an SF team.
Okay.
The A team, that's based off of an ODA.
Okay, got it.
But in all of my other teams,
Christian wanted to know.
Thank you so much.
No problem, sir.
but prioritizing the team, you have to be interacting with the team. You have to be on the same level as your team. You can't be, I'm better than you, I'm going to recluse, I'm going to seclude, because we're leadership. You can't do that. If you do that, you lose touch with, and you won't be the one realizing, hey, 20% of the team is doing 80% of the work.
Yeah.
Because you're part of that 80% that's not doing anything.
Yeah. One of the biggest things that I've learned, as a business owner the last 3 or 4 years is, like, I have a saying, like, I work for you, you know what I mean? And, like, I want to know everything that's going on, because, like, if you show up to work and you're in a bad spot and you don't tell me what's going on, I'm going to just assume you're being fucking lazy. So, like, I want to enter that certain portion of a friend zone with that person so that they feel like they can talk to me, right? Yeah. And I think that that's a big thing too. This question's an interesting one. Comparing the feeling of walking into boot camp or that SF team for the first time, and then comparing the emotions and feelings to knowing that, like, this was the last trip, and, like, I'm now going to be transitioning into this civilian world that you've had a taste of, and then back to where you perform the best, right? What's that like? And, like, how's that, I mean, is that just brain overload?
Yeah, I'm gonna go.
Go on, Matt.
Yeah, that transition is very, very difficult. Especially been a long time, especially guys in special operations who've been doing really high level stuff. Almost even your slow deployments, you're still doing pretty profound work, that have, national strategic
planning behind them.
So it's, and I've personally seen pretty much everybody really, really struggles, even if they have something lined up, making that transition, because just trying to find, meaning in life again. Mm-hmm. Like for me, I'd spent almost a quarter of a century. It's my entire adult life is what I've been doing, man. And so you're like, okay, now I have to pretty much figure out a new person, because I quickly realized that the person I was in the military that was loved and respected does not work well in the civilian world. Uh-huh. And I don't want to lose that. I'm proud of that stuff, and it gives me a lot of powers that regular people don't have access to. But I've had to really work hard to kind of reinvent my personality to a certain point of finding something that really works well in the civilian world, but I can still keep all of those strengths that I gained through the military.
What do you think the most important thing is on that transition? Like, if you are talking to yourself coming out of the military, what would you tell yourself now that you know, in the short period of time that was going through your mind then, to do? Like, what, or if someone is transitioning, like, what are the first few lines of attack that you want to position yourself on to make it as peaceful as possible, or as, I don't want to say as easy, because there's no easy involved in it, because I've seen it happen so many times. And as a civilian and someone who cares about your community, every time I see someone transition, I get worried.
Yeah.
Because I mean, I've been through now 3 suicides, in a very short period of time. And like, you guys are seeing that happen while you're enlisted. Yeah. And you're saying, oh, that's not going to be me probably, or maybe it's going to be difficult. That would never be me. And then I'd say 80% of the time there's suicidal thoughts in that transition.
Well, I think one of the biggest things is dudes red line, and they put off, just the community that I've been introduced to. I think that everybody that I know does this thing where they red line until they can't anymore. And they're like, okay, it's time to get out. And then they get out.
At the red line.
Yeah. They've been pegged out for 20 years, just redlining the whole time. And then when they decide to transition out, then it's like all of these physical problems, all these mental problems, all these spiritual, like, they've neglected all these different sides of themselves, to where now they're trying to get out. They don't know what their purpose is. They don't know what their plan is. And they're so conflicted because they have all of these piled up issues that they haven't addressed for 20 years. And now they're trying to, like, create a new career. Like, they're trying to achieve the next thing without fixing any of the stuff in the last 20 years. And I think that was the biggest thing for me, is being at that place. I had everything was going great, but it didn't change the fact that I was so conflicted because I had 18 years of problems that I hadn't addressed. That I just, my knees hurt, but that's okay. I don't tell anybody. Just push through this one and get to the next block. Like as long as I'm good enough to physically.
Bribe the woman doing the eye exam.
As long as I'm good enough to
the hearing exam. I mean,
yeah. But like all of these problems just compile. And I think it's in Nick Kay's book where he's like, you have this train, and every big trauma or every big injury or mental, emotional, physical, spiritual problem that we've, collected the last 18 years is another train car behind this train. The train's been going for 200 miles an hour for 18 years. And then you're like, all right, time to get off. Just hit the brakes. And all those cars start hitting each other and start pushing you.
Well, that's a
and
good
it's
analogy.
Just all of these problems. Yeah.
Yeah. No, that's a super good point. I mean, the crazy thing is that like what I see is that like you guys have this ability you're dealing with it at the highest level humanly possible, right? Because especially guys in your direct community, right? It's the highest level humanly possible. The best part for me is that when you guys get out, like someone who's dealing with it at a lower level, you guys have the answers once you guys figure it out. Like there's a lot of guys that I see like that, kind of like that guy took a knee and he's like, oh, this is nothing. Just move up there.
Yep.
Right. You can kind of read of what's going on with that person because you've been there at a way worse level, and I think that that's a big calling, even if it's not your job description. Like you're going to come into interaction with people constantly through the rest of your life that are going through shit like that, and I think it's more than your job to slow down and address that person. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I think there's probably a reason behind it. Right? Like, I mean, I'm a big believer in, coincidences aren't really that real. And I believe that like there's a large portion of people that are going through this transition, and those people's journey is to help other people go through transitions.
Yeah.
Right. And I mean, which plays a great role of having you guys both, being a partner with the foundation. I mean, that's great. I mean, because there's a lot of people that show up to that event each year, or we come into act. I mean, when we were at the Fresno event, Colton and Cody had this dude freaking in tears. This guy was 6'5" with his wife, crying his eyes out because Cody and Colton took the time to fucking slow him down and kind of let him know, like, it's bad, but it's not that bad. Like, you can get through it. And like for me, I love watching that shit because like that's like you just impacted somebody's life. You changed their dynamic, their direction. You fucking helped their wife. You helped their kids, and I think that that's huge. What like is as far as like the family unit, like on top of that too, they've sacrificed so much time, and like it's not just you. That downline is brutal.
Yeah, no, man, what we put off on, we do the same thing with our families. I think a lot of dudes prioritize the job. I think one of the biggest differences from being like a junior on our team, kind of going full circle here, is like when I see it all the time on the SF community, is guys show up as a new guy to the team and they're like, all right, now my priority is building a relationship and building competence so I can prove myself worthy on the team. And they're like, I'll deal with my family stuff later. The problem is too many of us continue that trajectory until we're 12 years in now. We're no longer doing the thing that we started off of. We just burn out. We sign up and it's every school that I can go to. It's every deployment I can get on. It's whatever I can do to prove myself to the regiment and to my team. And we neglect the family side. And like, I think that's where a lot of just now with working with the foundation, the biggest thing that I see, a lot of dudes aren't telling me, hey, I'm struggling because I was in this, bad shooting incident, or I was in this, whether it's law enforcement or it's military. Most of the dudes are, man, it's what they did to their family. It's what their family relationship is like after the military because of what they were pursuing during their military career or law enforcement career.
And the other side of it too is like, Matt and I did some like interactive training yesterday of like the difference between speaking to someone on the phone or in person. We were going through that, and like what's crazy is that like that man or woman can't be the best that they can be if they're not mentally dialed in at some point, if their hormones are out of balance. Like that's another major role of the foundation to get if you have a 200 test level, you're already depressed, you're estrogen dominant, you're miserable, and you're trying to fix things.
You have all of these external factors. You have all of these internal things that this 18 car pileup behind the train that's happening. And then also your hormones aren't right. So you're not sleeping, you're not recovering, you're constantly you're more emotional than what you should be. You're having these mood swings. None of those things are going to help you get better at the right here, right now. Being too emotional and being like estrogen driven, where your testosterone is lower than that estrogen is kind of like that driving factor. That's not helpful in repairing relationships with your spouse. That's not helpful in being the best example and role model to your kids. You're going to be lazy. You're going to be sitting around. You can make bad eating habits because your sleeping is bad, and you're more likely to make impromptu decisions.
Exactly.
It leads to this like spiral of just worse and worse. And I think a lot of dudes wake up and they're 5 years out of the military. They're overweight. Their family life isn't what they wanted it. They're not performing like they are at their job. They don't have any energy. And they're like, man, how did this happen? But it all started
they're super hard on themselves because they're looking back at the savage
of what they used to be.
Yeah. It's like I have a couple friends that I go home and I can find them on the same bar stool every single time I go back to Boston, and all they talk about is how great they were at football in high school. I'm like, dude, what the fuck is going on here? You know what I mean? Like, get me the fuck out of this town. But like, it's a reality. Like, people are really hard on themselves because they had some major success in their life. I've seen it in the business world to where I saw a guy exit for over $150 million, blow everything, and it just didn't have it in him to get back to that level. Right. And it was like really hard. Like that battle was over. He was he was fine with never having money again because he didn't think he could ever do it again, which he was young, and that was a hard thing to watch because I mean, I'm of the believer that take everything from me today, I'm going to have it back 12 months from now. Like, I feel like that I have that ability, and it's hard to watch. Right. But the thing is that what the great thing about it is what the selfish portion for me is to see the transition, like, of even civilians, you guys, my close friends, of like that. It doesn't happen overnight. It's very, very gradual. Yep. It's so slow, but eventually I don't see someone for a while and then you're like, holy fuck, dude, that guy really put the work in.
Yep. Yeah.
It's cool.
It's one way or the other. It's either they put the work in or if they don't, it's obvious that they did.
Exactly.
I was going to say, I don't know if this is something you created, but Colton gave me a great analogy. And he was like...
It probably wasn't him then.
Man, yeah, I know, right? So, he just said, man, you've been walking through the wilderness for 24 years. Mm-hmm. You don't get to just walk out of the woods.
Exactly.
You really got to stay with it.
Walk a mile in, you got to walk a mile out.
And I want to come back to, you asked her a little bit earlier about advice we would give. It's something we've talked about quite a bit. And there's two things that really comes to mind for me. The first and foremost, man, we try to do a lot on our own, and really finding your tribe, finding your group of men and supportive guys, and that support network is absolutely crucial. It's there. There's something we can provide through the foundation for guys. There are some guys who simply don't have that. Seeking those out and finding, but really making sure you have a solid support network. Yeah. And again, man, the thing that we keep on running back into is being kinder to yourself. That negative self-talk. And a lot of it's that same voice is what drove us to be successful. That constant seeking out perfection, but it can become to the point where it's becoming harmful, where you're just an asshole to yourself all the time. And trying to get that in check and realizing, like, I'm good now. There's a whole other portion of my life we're about to tackle. I still have great work to do, and I'm a good person.
I think it turns into, and we've talked about this, like, if I'm doing an operation, or like, I think a good example is like if you're, doing a jump, right? If you're on your way down and you're under canopy, the thing that they tell you is don't focus on the thing that you don't want to hit. Like, if you see a tree that you're going towards the tree, don't stare at the tree and try to steer away from it. Stare at the place you want to land and navigate there. Put the tree out of your mind. Don't stare at the tree. If you stare at the tree, you're going to be like, don't hit the tree, and you're going to hit the tree. But I feel like that's what happens. I feel like we develop this coping mechanism that pushes us to succeed.
Yep.
And now that it's not a clear path to what our purpose is or what our passion is, then all of a sudden it becomes this destructive mechanism that's like, we're staring at the tree saying, don't hit the tree, don't fail, don't fail, don't fail. And now we start doing the same thing that we saw in selection, where we saw great dudes self-assess and let that negative voice be the fear of failure that holds them back from trying. I'd rather just quit now or say that I have an injury now rather than like actually giving it my all and not making it because I don't know if I could handle that. 9 times out of 10, if you give it your all, you are enough. You know what I mean? Like if not, it's going to be a learning experience and you're going to be like, man, it didn't work out the way I wanted it, but I learned so much from that incident about me and about myself and how I react to those situations. You're going to be better for it. Whether it's business, selection, I think it doesn't matter. Whether it's that transition, getting rid of that negative self-talk and don't let yourself, the fear of failure be your driving factor rather than, look at what you could have rather than look at what could potentially happen if things don't go well.
Matt said something that I didn't even realize, and it's been happening, and I haven't even really slowed down to think about it. Like with the amount of people that are involved in the foundation, involved in core, in the events, and like the circle of community, I think that we've all built and like brought to the table. Like if you are struggling, there's definitely people like in this direct community that you can like DM us and they will reach out to you and bring you into this community if you want to put the work in. Like don't call if you don't want to put the fucking work in. Like, but if you want to talk to someone, call. But if you want to put in the work, like you're more than welcome to hop on a plane and come hang out in Florida. Like, I mean, that's the bottom line. It's and it's already happening. Like look at Cody. I mean, the guy will stop what he is doing to help anybody, whether they're a civilian or not. He's like one of the most amazing. He's constantly at service to others. And it's not even about money. It's just like about the fact that it helps him, right?
That savage servant.
Yeah, and I think that he's building this downline of savage servants. I think that that's like another big thing that Cody does is like he doesn't even realize he's doing it. He's turning people into like himself by helping them. And
it's a force multiplier.
It's a force, exactly. And it's fucking awesome. But we have to cut it because we're a little over time. But that clock's wrong. It's 9:40. But we'll be doing this again because we have a lot more to talk about. And I wanted to have some time to chat about the foundation and where that's going. So maybe we'll have some more time this week to pop back in.
Yeah, cool.
But thanks, guys. Dude, I'm super proud of both of you. I couldn't be more proud to call you guys friends. And thanks for coming on.
Yeah, it's been an honor, man. Support you've given have been everything for me.
Agreed, man. Thanks for having us.
Thank you.